give just another minute or so here. We have about 50 people registered and just about half that on the call. So we're going to give everyone just another minute or two to log in and get settled. Thank you for everyone who's answered in the chat. We got Kristen and Lori from Malta, Paul from Glasgow, Mark from the Flathead, Katie from West Yellowstone. Good thing we don't have to drive to this meeting today, right? All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I see I promoted Cody, so he can chat now if he wants. We're going to just do a really quick intro. Thank you for everyone for joining us. Just so you know, we are going to record this. So we will have this for other people that aren't able to hop on to be able to refer to. It was really nice to be able to meet a lot of you at water school this last month, or at League, Montana League in Helena, and see what projects you're working on and how you're doing on your inventories, and the questions that you have are really good, help inform our work. So thank you for those. I want to welcome all of our state and federal partners too that are joining us on the call, as well as all of our municipal partners and city government, public works directors, our engineers, our other service providers. Thank you so much on this snowy afternoon hopping on our call. Just kind of as an update, we want to let you know that we still have applications. If you put in the applications, don't worry that you haven't heard back yet. We should be hoping to make those assignments in the next couple of weeks here. You should probably start hearing from someone. So don't worry about that. If you put in the application, your application is still in there. And then that's pretty much, you know, our most of our updates. Last month when we met, we did a little bit of a question of what was topic that you wanted to hear about the most next, and the highest vote came in from inventory templates. So Greg Montgomery from DEQ is going to give us a little bit of update on that, how to find them, where they are, and how you're going to need to have them submitted. We also have Tina Salazar, who is a lead service line specialist, technical assistant specialist, on with us, as well as Cody, who is the director of this program. Cody, do you have anything that you want to add before we turn the time over to Greg for his presentation?
No, I don't think so. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and for Sue for pulling all this together. No, I'll be here, and if anybody has any questions, I can help answer things. But yeah, no, let me take it away.
All right, sounds great. All right, we're going to turn it over to Greg. Greg, you can introduce yourself again, but I'm sure most people probably are pretty familiar. But please let us know, you know, what it is that you do, and then help everyone understand better how to fill out their templates.
Sure. So as Sue said, I'm Greg Montgomery. I oversee the lead programs at DEQ. I'm in the Public Water Supply Bureau. So I just have I guess the main point today was to kind of go over the template, what it looks like, where to find it, open it up, kind of go through the different columns in the template itself, kind of go over the guidance document to kind of help you walk you through that. And please, if you have any questions, I think you can use that raise your hand icon, and then Sue can unmute you. But feel free to ask any questions you may have. Let me share my screen. Sue, is that showing up?
It is not. There you go. Now we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess before I get too far into it, are there any general questions about the lead service line inventory requirements? We do have less than a year now. The due date for that is October 16th of 24. So if you guys have any questions, you can ask them now. You can always email myself. I have two other people that work on the lead and copper rule, George Williams and Matt Schmidt. They're both lead and copper rule managers, and they can also answer any questions you have in the future. Sue, did my slide move forward? I can't see the presentation anymore.
If it's like on Mars, yes.
No, that's okay.
There we go.
Okay. So first of all, I'll just start with what are we even talking about? The lead and copper rule was recently revised. The biggest revision of that is a requirement to do what EPA calls a lead service line inventory, and that's required for all systems that fall under the lead and copper rule. In reality, it's a service line inventory. So regardless if you have lead or not, you still have to do a service line inventory. Even if you know there's no lead in your system at all, you still have to go through this process and submit an inventory. So what we're really looking for, what EPA wants everybody to inventory, what they're calling the service line. And that's basically from the water main to your customer. So in this case, a house. And then we do break it up into two sections. The street side service line, that would go from the water main to the property bound to the curb stop. And then the building side, which would go from curb stop to the connection to the home or to the business. And then the other thing we'll be looking at is the connector. So it's not required to be inventoried, but we highly recommend it. And the connector is simply the pipe that goes from the water main to the service line itself. A lot of times you pigtail, it's called a pigtail sometimes, that can be lead, even if the rest of the service line is not. So we just, since we're going through this exercise, we want to make sure everything kind of is inventoried at this time. There we go. So, how do you get started with inventory? And we'll get into the website in a second. But on the website, we have guidance documents to how to do an inventory itself. So going through all the different steps and where to find information to compile your inventory, which we won't get into a lot in this presentation. And then there's also there's a guidance document to walk you through how to use a template itself. We also have a short instruction document that if you're not used to dealing with Excel, how to navigate through Excel to use the template as well. So we do have inventory templates for both community systems and NTNC systems. And I will jump into the website now. So to find where all this information is kept on DEQ's website, you can simply just go to deq.gov and through the water programs under drinking water, you'll see there's a tab that says lead and copper rule webpage. So we put everything involving the lead and copper rule under one single page. So it'll have the contact information on the right-hand side with the different rule managers, general information, and then we have right on top the lead service line inventories. So this is where all the templates will be kept, guidance documents. This is the portal which we'll go over today too, where to submit your inventory, as well as a link to Department of Commerce's website to apply for their assistance as well if you need that. And then also a lot of this information is also housed on Commerce's website. Other than that, it has all the rest of the lead and copper rule information, training calendars and guidance and forms for the rest of the requirements in the rule as well. So I will show you. So this is the guidance document we put together for the inventory template. And we tried to make it as easy to follow as possible, but essentially it goes through each column. So column A through W, and what is needed to be entered in that column with a little bit more explanation. And we have a separate one for communities as well as the NTNCs. The columns for the most part and required information are basically the same. There's just a few slight changes. And one other thing I'll mention with the inventories as I click on this, when you open it, it really depends how it opens. You want to be cautious of what browser you're opening it in. So in this case, I think I open it up in Microsoft Edge. So here it actually opens up in a separate window within Edge. So for this to work, you really want to make sure that you download the file onto your computer. Because if you use it on Edge here, you can see a lot of the drop-down menus that are built into the template do not work, or they're not showing up. So you really have to make sure that you hit the download, and then you open the file separately in Excel. I think if you use Microsoft Chrome, when you click on it, it'll automatically download in your download files, and you open it up that way or open it up separately in Excel. The other thing you want to make sure that you do is you can see even on here they get drop-down menus, but none of the drop-down menus will work. You have to make sure that if you get this notification on the top says enable editing, that you click on that. So once you do that, then the kind of the full functionality of the template itself will be unlocked. So one thing I'll start with, there's a lot of columns. We try to make this as streamlined as possible, and then also make it a tool for systems to use as an inventory of their distribution, their service lines. But it is quite a bit. So we did try to make it somewhat as easy as we could. Most of the columns, starting with, I think, column H over, have drop downs. So when you click on that, you'll see is there a lead connector present? Yes, no, or unknown. And you'll see that option with a lot of the different columns. So as you kind of navigate through this, again, I would have that template, the guidance document open, and help you, how to answer these questions. And all these questions are kind of tied in. So the ultimate purpose, or basically essentially what we have to submit to the EPA at the end of the day, is they want to know 4 key pieces of information for each system. How many lead lines are there? How many galvanized requiring replacement? How many unknown? And how many non-lead? So in order to get that information, we have to ask a lot of questions. And that's why these questions, so we'll run through one of these. So you do have to fill out a line for each connection you have. So if your community has 50 connections, you have to do 50 lines. If your community has 10,000, you'd still have to fill out 10,000 lines, and each one has to be unique. So that's what, each one of your customers. So that's the street address. If there's a unit number, some other designation that makes that line, that row unique. And you can cut and paste. So if you have your own spreadsheet with your billing information for the customers, you can cut and paste that into here. So if we go through one of these and so is a lead connector present? Is a lead connector present, yes or no, or unknown? So that's referring to, do you know if the connector, so that, small piece of pipe, usually 24 inches or less, going from the water main to the service line, if you know what that material is, you can document it here. Or basically, is it lead, yes or no? So in this case, if that, let's say it's yes in this case, then the next column refers to the street side part of the service line. So again, that's what we're calling from the water main to the curb stop. So in that case, you do have a number of options. Is it lead? Is it galvanized? Is it non-lead, meaning, is it plastic, non-lead copper, non-lead other? Unknown, like you don't know what it is, but you think it might be lead. Unknown, like unlikely lead, or you just don't know. So in this case, if we just select unknown likely lead, and then it's going to ask you a question, was that side of the service line ever lead? So if you know that maybe that part, that street side service line was lead 10 years ago and your community already replaced it, this is where you document that. So if you know it was already lead in the past, you put yes. If it wasn't, you pick no, or an unknown, you pick unknown. If you think that street side is original to the house, obviously this question doesn't really apply. In that case, you would just select no, that it was never lead. And then it comes to installation date. So we did basically do grouping. So instead of putting exact dates in, we just put 10-year time frames. And one thing to keep in mind here is you can see we did go 1980 to 87 and then 88 to 2000. And the reason for that is the December of 87, Montana adopted the lead ban. So anything constructed 88 or after, you can assume is non-lead. So it's important that, if this was installed in 1990, that you want to make sure you select that option, because that'll help you determine, even if you don't know if this material down here, what it is, it can help you with the overall classification, because it's not lead. You may not know what the material is, but it's not lead. On the building side, so the next question is what the building side material is. So this again from the curb stop connecting into the home or to the business. So in this case, if you know that is copper, let's say you click copper, it's going to ask you for the installation date. You kind of do your best to figure out which one you kind of fall into. If you really don't know, you can always select unknown. There's also going to be questions on one second. How did you come up with this determination? So what records did you look at in order to determine that it wasn't lead or whatever the material happens to be? So there's installation records. You can select, if it's a newer location and it was built after 88, you can select this column here. If it's based on one of these other options, you can. If it's not in here, you can always click on other, and then there's a comment field in column O that you can basically put more information in. So how did you come up with that determination? You can fill it in there. So column P is important because that's the information that we have to report to the EPA. And for these templates, what we did is we automated it for you. So you don't have to figure out what the classification is for the service line. The template will automatically do it for you. So you can see based on what we added in here, it's selected it as unknown. So lead status unknown, it just means it's an unknown line. And the reason why is because we put unknown for the street side. So If either side is unknown, it classifies the whole material as unknown. If we change this column to we change that to galvanized, you can see it automatically changes it to non-lead. Yeah, and then it really just depends on how you fill this out. It should automatically populate into the non-lead, unknown, lead, or galvanized requiring replacement. So the galvanized requiring replacement one can be confusing. So that refers to if the street side material was lead previously. So if we move this to say it was previously lead, and the building side is currently galvanized, that line becomes a galvanized requiring replacement line. Essentially, it's essentially the same as a lead service line. The reason for that is galvanized, if there's lead upstream of it, galvanized will absorb lead over time and then later release it. So it acts like a lead service line. So that's why it has a separate category. And again, it only applies if you have a building side that's galvanized and the upstream part, so the street side, used to be lead at some point. So the whole line would be considered galvanized requiring replacement. So as you go down, like column Q, who owns a service line? So I should say the first, up to column P, that's the most critical information for the service line inventory. So that's probably what's going to take the most time to put together and sometimes the hardest to determine what that material is. If you don't know, you can always select just unknown for both. And you can see it changes the classification to unknown. One caveat with unknown is EPA does treat unknown lines as lead until otherwise proven. So there is that to think about when you are selecting unknown, knowing that some of your homes, you don't have any information, you click unknown, and that's okay. I would just say you have a plan in place going forward to maybe slowly do more research or investigation, determine what that material is, and then you can always go back and update your inventory as needed. So as we're going through like column Q, who owns the service line? We have three options. Is it owned by the system, the water system that is? Does the customer own it, or is it a combination? So this refers the entire service line from the water main to the home. I know a lot of communities, the customer owns the entire thing, although the community might have right of way up to the curb stop. Technically, the customer owns the entire service line. Some places the system owns up to the home, and other places it's a combination. So homeowner owns to the curb stop, and it's the community, the system owns to from the curb stop to the street. So the other columns indicate service line diameter. So again, we put this in really as a tool for communities to use to keep track of their inventories. This can be helpful to determine if there's lead service line or not. Maybe if you don't know what that material is, but let's say it's a 3-inch line, it's unlikely it's lead. Typically, we don't see lead lines over 2 inches. So you can use this as just one additional method to help you determine what that service line classification is. And then we put another comment field in. So any other information that you want to document or you feel you want to put in the inventory or justification for any of the how you made these decisions, I would put it in the comment field here. So column T through W, these columns aren't required for the inventory. However, they're important overall for the lead and copper rule revisions. The reason we ask for these is as part of the new lead and copper revision, communities will have to redo their site sampling plans. So EPA is changing the tiering criteria to select sampling locations. It's going from a 3-tier system to a 5-tier system. So since you're going through this process of documenting these service lines, it's probably easier to collect this information as much as you can now than go back and kind of redo an effort later. So again, these are all drop downs. We ask, is it single family, multifamily, school, childcare, hospital, other, non-piped. So non-piped might be, we have a number of water bottlers that are public water supplies. We have a number of water haulers, the water trucks. So those would be classified as a non-piped. But again, this kind of fits the tiering criteria, the new tiering criteria process, which is why we ask these questions. The same thing with you. It asks, is there water treatment in the building? So does the home have a water softener or an RO unit? If you don't know, you can click unknown. This will help you. If it is yes, that home won't be eligible to be put on as a sampling location because you don't want to sample homes that have treatment. And then again, what is the building material in the home itself? So do they have copper? Is it plastic? Is it galvanized? Other, unknown? You can always fill it in here. One thing we should have added into here was a combination. So if it's because a lot of homes are a combination of PEX and copper, things like that. You can always put that as other, and then general comments fill in, combination of multiple types within the building. And then when was the plumbing installed? Again, that comes into play because of that lead ban in 88. A lot of the solder that's used in copper plumbing prior to 88 had pretty high concentrations of lead. After 88, the percentage dropped. So, and then there was another revision to the lead-free status in 2014, which further decreased lead concentrations in solder. So that's why we have that as an option as well. This information is actually included on Department of Commerce put together a door hanger that communities can use to help with their inventories. So that's one way you can get this information from customers. But again, just fill out the best you can. Ultimately, it's going to help you develop your inventory later down the road. And then the other thing I'll add with this template, it is locked. So you won't be able to modify any of the columns or rows or add in additional information. The reason for that is this was put together to go into our GIS database. If anything changes in it, it won't go in and it'll cause issues with uploading on our side. So it is locked. We do need this back as an Excel template, so we won't accept PDFs or any other format. I think we can accept a CSV file or Excel. When you submit it, you have to submit in one of those two formats. And actually, then when I show you the portal where you upload your inventory, it will actually only take an Excel file. So if you try putting a PDF in, it won't take the PDF. And then the other thing I mentioned is, so this template will be used for systems that are under DEQ jurisdiction. So basically, if your PWS number starts with an MT, this is the template you'll have to use and submit. If you're a tribal system and you're under EPA, you're still going to go through this process, but the template is going to be slightly different because you'll have to use the EPA template and then submit it to EPA. So, and I can show you where that is. That's on Department of Commerce's website. But in general, it asks the same information. There are a bunch more forms that you'd have to fill out as well. Okay. Okay, so going back to the website, the NTNC template is very similar. The only change with that is instead of having the service line split with a curb stop in the middle, it's just a service line. So we've seen a lot of the NTNCs don't necessarily have that that curb box in the middle, or community systems that have their own well, or NTNCs that have their own well. You're not really going to see that curb stop. So it's basically what is the material of the service line overall. And that's really the only change in between the two templates. The other thing I wanted to show you was how to submit inventory. So we do have an online portal. It's going to take you to this page here, which just gives you general information. You go to submit inventory, and you will get this, we call a citizen portal. You'll get this password thing that comes up. It's a very easy process. You'll actually have to do a similar process when you work, if you request assistance through Department of Commerce. They have the similar kind of firewall. It's the same with all the state. Once you do it, you just need to do it once. So if you've already done it with Commerce, the same username and password will work on this. But in this case, I'll just go through the state. So this is essentially what our portal looks like. It's just going to have simple information, what your system name is. So it's the name of the community system itself. Ask you for the PWS number. So please enter the full number. So the MT plus the 7 digits after. The contact information and all this will be pre-populated based on your login. So if you want it somebody different than how you logged in with your username and password, you can simply override this and change it. But it will be pre-populated. The other part is it's going to ask you, how are you making your inventory publicly accessible? So one of the requirements of the rule is that all communities and NTNC systems have to make their inventories publicly accessible. If your community has greater than 50,000 connections, or people or population greater than 50,000 that you serve, you have to make it available online. So you would have to put it on your website. For the rest of the communities less than 50,000, you just have to make it publicly accessible. So this just simply asks, how are you doing that? And again, we put in a drop down. Do you have an online map, online spreadsheet, information on the water utility bill or newsletter, hard copy in your office. So as long as it's accessible, somebody requests it and you can give it to them, that's fine. Or you can collect on other and you can enter in, how you'd make it publicly accessible. So once you do that, you click on here, and basically that's how you attach your inventory. So you'll be able to, and again, this will only accept an Excel or CSV file. It won't even allow you to upload like a PDF. But once you have that uploaded, then you have to click on the box down here that certifies everything that you're providing is, to the best of your knowledge, accurate. Once you click on that, you hit submit, and that's it. So then you kind of finish your submittal of the service line inventory. You'll get an auto email back to you, stating thank you for submitting your inventory. And I think it has my number down. If you have any further questions, please contact myself, or I think it also has an email address too. The email won't come from DEQ. It'll come from, I think it says state ISI or SITSD, which is our state IT group. So it'll be in that. So it could go to your junk email. Just be careful. Just be cautious of that. But anyways, you'll get an auto email, within a few minutes of submitting it. If you don't, give us a call and we can see where it is. And then the other thing I'll mention about this is, and hopefully this will be fixed within the next week or so, but we are having issues with the upload button. So if you do try to upload this and it's not accepting it, please give us a call. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. They're trying to figure out why that's happening. But in the meantime, just give us a call, or you can simply just email us your inventory as well. And then I'll show you where, if there's any tribal systems on, and where you find those inventory templates, specifically for the systems under EPA jurisdiction. So the easiest place to go would be just to go to the Commerce website. And again, they have a lot of the same information that's on ours. And go to inventory templates. And then right here is where you go to the EPA inventory template. Click on here. So for the EPA template, you'll notice it's a much larger template than the state one. But it kind of has everything built in as far as the where to find. They have the guidance document kind of built into the spreadsheet itself. But you would go through and you would fill out each tab, and then this is their template for the actual inventory itself. So I think they have drop downs for everything as well. Yep, so they have drop downs as well. So again, it's asking the same, for the most part, the same information. There's quite a few columns in this one as well. They also have information on the classification. So again, we have all this as well. We just keep it in a separate guidance document. Yep. So the other things, those are kind of the highlights I wanted to go over in today's training. The other thing just to keep in mind is, as you're going through this process of filling out your inventory, really make sure that you're documenting everything. So documenting how you're putting this inventory together, what information you've looked at, just so in 5-10 years from now, somebody can look at it and figure out how you came up with that classification. What information did you look at? And things like that. So it'll help down the road the more you document now. With that, is there any questions? One other thing I'll mention is again, the inventory has to be in ART format. So if you are using your own GIS database, or if you're going through one of the other providers like a 120 Water or Blue Conduit that has their own templates, the end of the day, though, it still has to be submitted within the DEQ, in the DEQ template on our website. Yep. And
Thanks, Greg.
Yep. Thanks, Sue.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Your new Matt is new, I think.
Yeah, so George Williams and Matt Schmidt are both our lead and copper rule managers. Matt just started about 5 months ago, but you can call either person with any questions, specifically on the lead service line, especially on the lead and copper rule itself, or the lead service line inventory.
So if we have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you. We would love to hear your thoughts, questions, concerns. We did have, Thomas had shared that they used their Montana GIS to find the date and the home build. Mm-hmm. And that's really good information. We are looking at building a map that will have the GIS of each public water system that has to complete the inventory and the stage that they're at, so that will help fulfill the public reporting requirement. If you want to share that onto your own website or Facebook page, if you're under 50,000, I think that's going to fulfill that requirement. Greg can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Let's see. I thought I saw some hands raised, but it's not showing me. Let's see, Lisa.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm just wondering if for some of this information, we can ask the homeowner, like the build date of their house. Is that acceptable, or do we have to find some records?
I think it's acceptable. I mean, if you ask them and they know when it was built, like I know my house was built in 71, I think that's reasonable. You know, if they don't know, that's when you might go to like the Montana cadastral system and you can look up when homes were built on that as well.
Okay, and then one more thing. There was some talk amongst people previously about we have to find out into their house, into the tap coming into the kitchen. And so is that also the case?
Yeah, and that's what that information is asked on our template, like what's the home plumbing? What type of plumbing is it? You can ask the homeowner, or, you know, if not, the Commerce on there, they have door hangers that has that questions on it that the homeowner can fill out. You know, some homeowners might not want to tell you, and that's okay. You can just put unknown.
Yeah,
so you kind of
that's
do your
my
best you can to
concern.
fill it out.
Okay, so we don't have to go in and ask, say, we have to look under your sink?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so ultimately, you know, you want to get the best information that you can, because otherwise that service line is going to get listed as lead. So the door hangers, and we also have magnets and other things with the matrix that's online, that basically the homeowner can go through that matrix and go, oh, okay, so is it shiny like a copper penny? Yes or no? And they then can move on, you know. And if it's like not, but it's metal, is it magnetic? Yes or no? And if it's magnetic, it's galvanized. If it's not, and there's not threads, it's lead. So there's kind of a matrix that they can self-report. And that's a way that we can ask homeowners to participate in that. They don't feel comfortable with a worker coming into their home.
Okay, thank
And
you.
the other thing I'll say is this inventory that, you know, that's due on the 16th of October of next year, this is just your initial inventory. So it's okay if it's not 100% complete. Or if you put unknown, you can put unknown. You can always go back. There's a requirement for updating your inventory, and that'll be tied to your community's monitoring schedule. So if you're on 3-year sampling, you'll have to update your inventory every 3 years. The most you have to update it is annually. So it's okay if it's not complete. Or if you marked it down as galvanized and 6 months later you realize it was lead, that's fine. You can always go back in and change it.
Thanks, Lisa. Those are great questions. Did you have anything else?
Just what he just said, that's news to me. So if we submit this with unknowns, we are on a 3-year schedule where I'm at. So we won't have to update it for 3 years.
Well, it'll be tied directly to your schedule. Yeah. So the other part to that, and so they're revising the lead and copper rule again, EPA. They're calling it the LCRI, so lead and copper rule of improvements. We're supposed to be getting that draft any day now. And in that, they're going to be, they're further clarifying some of the stuff that was in the lead and copper rule revisions. So one of the things in the revision is if you do, as part of your inventory, if you do identify any lead service lines, galvanized requirement replacement, and possibly unknown, it does affect your monitoring schedule. So it may, especially if you have a lead line or galvanized recurring replacement, it will cause the system to go back to 6-month sampling.
Oh, I see.
Not permanently, but at least for, I think, 2 rounds. It may happen with unknowns as well. But even if you're on 6-month sampling, the most you'd have to update your inventory is annually.
Okay.
But we should have more information next, hopefully by the end of the year. And we'll be getting more information out and doing more trainings on what all the other changes to the rule are.
Questions? Thanks, Lisa. So
Thanks.
Thomas has some questions. You should be unmuted now, Thomas.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I'm using a different system here. I'm on at a remote location. My first question is on the sheet that on the Excel spreadsheet. First of all, it's laid out pretty well. Thank you. It's a little awe-inspiring when you open it up the first time, but the drop downs help tremendously. I don't know if you can make a change or not, but one thing I would say, like you for the pigtails, that is actually, if you could have like the highly unlikely option there, because that's for us would be the initial answer, that it would be highly unlikely that they're like, just as a comment.
Yeah.
That would
And
really.
the one thing I forgot to mention in that is the actual pigtail classification, or that connector classification, doesn't go into the overall service line classification. I'm not sure why. That's just the way EPA put it together. So even if you have a lead pigtail or gooseneck, it doesn't make the rest of your line a lead line. So the reason we request that we ask that for that information is it does affect some of your sampling procedures down the road. And who knows what EPA is going to ask for a couple of years from now if they want those inventoried. So if you're going through this whole process, you might as well inventory the entire thing now. But we can look into that.
Very good. Thanks.
Good question. Good feedback, Thomas, too. Greg worked really hard on that Excel. Montana's has been kind of a example for others. It's so thank you, Greg, for putting in all those drop downs too. That really helps. Let's see. Are there any other questions?
I did have some that I would like to pass on if I could.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And
Thanks, Tom.
I had another question as well. For Lisa and for those that are just starting this, what we did is we sent out information on this with the water bill, and we did it 3 times, and each time we got about 25% response. And that really cuts down on the amount of work that you have to do as a system if you get that information back. What we didn't, however, do was keep copies of all those because they just came back in paper form. But in the emails back and forth, we've got most of that captured. So one thing when you said, make sure you know how you can prove that you did this 10 years from now, that's got me scratching my head. But the door hangers, or even just sending it out with a water bill with an explanation of why we need it. Our mistake was we sent it out and we thought from our initial talk that all we had to do was determine what the service line was on our side, not whether or not they had copper or PEX or poly in the house. So we'll be doing this again. But that, like I said, we got up to about the 75–80% just doing that.
That's great, Thomas, and that is a good note. So you're saying you received the postcards back, but you didn't like scan them or anything to document.
No, we just got them back. Got them in, and I think she's filed them somewhere, and I'll double check when I'm done with this meeting and get back to where I'm normally at. But that Montana GIS, once you get that worked really well for getting the house dates. And it just really helped us out. Let me see, where did my question go? If we've been doing our lead and copper tests and we've got 0 lead on the houses that are being tested. Can we use that as an affirmative for the fact that they don't have any lead from the pigtail to the house?
Unfortunately, no. So I think you can use that as one of the lines of evidence, but for the reason for that being, if your water isn't really that corrosive, you're not going to really see lead in the water, even if there's lead present. So even if you have a lead service line, you may not see it. Yeah, an EPA is not currently, I think you can use it as a tool, but not a standalone.
I read through that, but they kind of left that piece unanswered. And I thought, well, that'd be really handy if I could do that, but then they didn't say that you could. They just said
Yeah,
it
they
was
do.
informational.
Yeah, they will allow you to do additional sampling to determine if a line is lead or not. So it's called sequential sampling. So you take a number of samples, one after the other, and based on but you also have to know how much piping is in the home, where you're collecting the, how far back the service line is. So the theory is maybe the 5th liter bottle, that water is what was sitting in the service line. And you can use that to help you determine if there's lead. It's not foolproof. And so we will, as a state, we will allow it, but the community would have to submit a work plan on how are they going to do that. Because in order for it to be effective, you have to know that some of the homes have lead service lines and sample them, and then sample homes that don't. So you kind of set that baseline, and then you can use that to determine the other homes that are unknown if they're lead or not. So you do have to know you definitely have some homes at least that have lead service lines.
I can pretty well guarantee, well, what I can't do is I can't unequivocally say that I don't have lead service lines, but based on everybody that I've talked to that was here from 72 on, everything that went in was copper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the initial lines were all copper, all the pigtails were copper. But I guess my question is, what level of proof do I need to say that in
To
the
make that
affirmative?
determination?
And when I put my name to to sign it, because that, to me, when I sign my name to something, that means something to me.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's whatever the system is comfortable with. So
Okay.
if you look at our guidance, we do have a whole bunch of different things you can do, like records and,
Yep.
talking to the homeowner, you can pothole, although that'd be like obviously the most expensive option is start digging.
Yeah.
But you can use all those, and ultimately, we feel it's up to the system. I mean, it's your inventory, whatever you're comfortable with. I know some other states are making, if they're using their records to determine the type of material, they're making them validate that and going back and, well, 10% of those homes that you use records to confirm they don't have lead, now you have to go dig up 10% of those to validate that your records are correct. We're not requiring that. So basically, we just want you to look at what you have, kind of do the best you can in order to inventory these and classify these materials to the best you can with the best information that you have. If you do have a lot of unknowns, you then may want to put a plan in place, maybe the next couple of years, start doing more investigation, or, as you're doing meter replacements or, water main replacements, things like that, you can further refine and update your inventory.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Thomas, too, about like this, we do really present this to this group as, the regulations and requirements, but really for our education within our communities, we want to really focus on the public safety aspect of this. That is the drive behind this. It isn't just to make people track their lines, it's to make sure that our systems are, moving forward, taking care of the lead, providing the best water, safest water possible for our communities. A lot of that information is been posted on the Department of Commerce Facebook page as well as LinkedIn. and they've cross-posted that with DEQ. And I really encourage our communities to please share that on your personal pages and share that information on your community Facebook pages. I know on the 16th, we did one that was a post about, 365 days until these are due. And so as our communities see that information, they're going to be more likely to, respond to postcards, respond to door hangers, come to public meetings, understand why we're doing this, and then also help participate in that. So thank you for sharing that. And to that point, next month, that's kind of what we'll go through a little bit, the assets that are there, technical assistance, what your service providers can help you do as far as community meetings, the media that's available to help you both fulfill the public access requirements like we talked about on the map, but also raise public awareness within your own communities, and sharing those things on your social media. So we have templates on there for the door hangers. We're working on some postcards that you can use. So like Thomas said, you can just take those and then print them and either put them in water bills, send them out directly, use the door hanger approach if you have a smaller community and you want to put those door hangers up. But really highly encourage you to share those posts now and start that conversation within your community as soon as possible. So we have like 4 more minutes till we hit the 4 o'clock hour. Is there anyone else that has a question, or Greg or Cody, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close?
No, just thank you everybody for hopping on, and we look forward to working with you.
The only thing I'll add is, again, this is just the initial inventory. If we do identify lead lines or galvanized requiring replacement, just be aware that we do have funding, at least for the next 5 years, to help you replace that. It is through the SRF, the State Revolving Fund process. Unfortunately, it is a loan with loan forgiveness as well, but they are better rates and kind of a better deal than the normal SRF projects. But there is that money available that can help replace those costs, to replace those service lines and everything involved with the replacement. So, property restoration, permitting, all that kind of stuff can be covered. But again, it's only likely be available for the next 5 years.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. That's a great point. If you apply for technical assistance on the Commerce site and you're assigned a service provider, the first thing that they're going to initially focus on is going to be the completion of the inventory. But then there are funds to help you with that plan, look at funding options, have those type of community meetings. So it's really a great opportunity to be able, especially if you're already doing a water project, maybe with ARPA funds, to be able to use some of that very low interest funding if you're eligible through that revolving loan for lead lines. Is there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Feel free to save this link when it comes through. We usually have that on in about 24 to 48 hours on the Commerce website. You could either go through the CTAP page, or if you go to tinyurl.com/LSL 406, it will also take you to that site. I will throw that in the chat, and then we'll just see you next month.